The story begins in a remote frontier town during the late 1800s, a place where dust swirls through the streets and the tension between settlers and native tribes hangs thick in the air. Life in the town is harsh and unforgiving, with every day presenting a new struggle for survival. Amidst this backdrop of uncertainty, a young woman lives under the watchful eyes of her protective family. She has been sheltered her entire life, her days carefully managed to keep her from danger or disappointment. Her innocence is profound, almost palpable, as she navigates a world she knows only in fragments through stories, glimpses of the outside world and her own imagination. She yearns to experience life beyond the confines of her family's home, yet the fear instilled by constant warnings about the dangers outside leaves her hesitant, cautious, and uncertain. This fragile sense of security is shattered one afternoon, when the young woman witnesses a violent confrontation on the town's main street. A group of rowdy men, fueled by prejudice and fear, are threatening a figure she cannot fully recognize at first. The tension is electric, and the air seems to thrum with the potential for disaster. The young woman freezes, caught between fear and the instinct to run, unable to tear her eyes away from the scene. It is in this moment that the Apache emerges, a figure both imposing and graceful, exuding a calm authority that immediately commands attention. His presence is a striking contrast to the chaotic energy surrounding him. With decisive, fluid movements he intervenes, neutralizing the immediate threat with a skill born of years of survival and experience in a harsh world. The young woman's initial reaction is one of shock and awe. She is overwhelmed by the Apache's strength, his confidence, and the effortless way he handles danger. Her fear is tinged with fascination. She cannot reconcile the terrifying events unfolding before her with a sense of safety now being offered by this stranger. Despite the apparent threat he once posed in her mind, shaped by the prejudices she has been taught, she begins to see him differently, as a protector rather than a threat. This moment marks the beginning of a complex and nuanced connection. Between them, a relationship defined by both cultural differences and shared humanity. The interaction between the young woman and the Apache is subtle but charged with meaning. He speaks few words, relying instead on gestures, expressions, and actions to communicate. She is unaccustomed to this form of interaction, having grown up in a world where words carry the weight of social rules and expectations. The Apache's calm, deliberate approach contrasts sharply with the chaos around them, and his protective instincts become a lifeline for her. In witnessing his bravery and restraint, she begins to question the rigid beliefs she has held about people from different worlds. At the same time, the Apache observes her closely, noting her vulnerability but also glimpsing her inherent curiosity and courage. He senses that she is different from those he has encountered before, more perceptive, more aware of the emotional currents beneath the surface of human interaction. He recognizes the potential for trust but knows that it must be earned, particularly given the young woman's sheltered upbringing and the deep-seated fears that have shaped her perception of the world. As the immediate threat dissipates and the town's chaos begins to settle, the young woman is left grappling with a mixture of emotions: fear, relief, admiration, and curiosity. She realizes that her world, once rigid and predictable, is far more complex and nuanced than she had imagined. The Apache, standing as both a protector and an enigmatic figure from a world she scarcely understands, represents a doorway to experiences and truths she has never known. Their initial encounter establishes the tension, intrigue, and emotional stakes that will carry the story forward, laying the foundation for a relationship that will challenge beliefs, inspire courage, and bridge the gap between two very different worlds. This first meeting is pivotal, setting the tone for the story's exploration of trust, vulnerability, and the fragile beginnings of connection that defy fear and prejudice. hinting at the extraordinary journey that lies ahead for both the young woman and the Apache. After the dramatic encounter in the town square, the young woman finds herself in a state of disorientation. Fear, awe, and curiosity intermingle within her, leaving her uncertain of what she should do next. The Apache, having neutralized the immediate threat, offers her safety not through words alone but through the quiet assurance of his presence. Recognizing that returning to her family could expose her to danger or even punishment from those who misunderstand the situation, he leads her away from the chaos of the town streets toward the relative safety of his encampment on the outskirts. The journey itself is filled with tension. Every glance, every footstep through the rugged landscape underscores the fragility of their emerging trust. For the young woman, this is a world unlike any she has known, wide open, untamed, and yet infused with an unexpected sense of order and rhythm. Arriving at the Apache encampment, she is immediately confronted with the contrasts between her sheltered life and the richness of his world. Tents and structures are arranged with practical precision, yet there is artistry and care in the way the camp is maintained. Natural materials are used efficiently, reflecting both a deep knowledge of the land and a respect for it. Members of the Apache community move with purposeful grace, each action intentional, revealing a harmony between people and environment that she has never experienced. The young woman is both intimidated and fascinated. She feels out of place, yet she cannot help but observe the beauty and complexity of a life so different from her own. The Apache watches her closely, aware of her unease, yet he neither rushes her nor forces her into understanding. His patience is as much a form of teaching as any words he might speak. Communication between them is slow and deliberate. Language barriers exist, but they are bridged through gestures, expressions, and the shared human understanding of emotion. He offers her food, water, and a place to rest, small acts that convey care and safety without demanding trust prematurely. The young woman, in turn, begins to recognize that actions speak more clearly than words, and she starts to respond hesitantly, at first with gestures of acknowledgement and gratitude. The Apache's patience encourages her to let down her guard, even if only slightly, allowing a fragile bond to begin forming. Through these quiet exchanges, she begins to see him not as a threatening stranger, but as someone capable of kindness, wisdom, and restraint. As hours pass, the young woman is invited to observe daily life within the camp. She witnesses hunting practices, crafting of tools, and communal activities that highlight skill, cooperation, and respect for both people and nature. Each new observation challenges her preconceptions, slowly dismantling the biases and fears instilled by her upbringing. She begins to grasp the depth of knowledge, tradition, and honor that guides the Apache way of life, realizing that danger is not inherent in the people themselves but in ignorance, misunderstanding, and the prejudices carried by outsiders. This realization unsettles her but also ignites a curiosity that had been suppressed by years of cautious upbringing. The Apache, sensing this budding curiosity, introduces her to elements of his culture with careful guidance, demonstrating without overwhelming. Whether showing how fire is tended, explaining the meaning behind certain rituals, or simply walking with her through the surrounding landscape, he encouraged learning through experience rather than force. Each shared moment strengthens the tenuous trust developing between them. In his quiet, deliberate way, he communicates a crucial lesson: that understanding and connection are possible when one approaches the unknown with openness and respect. By the end of this period, the young woman's perception of the world and of the Apache has shifted significantly. What began as fear is now tinged with fascination. What began as mistrust is now tempered by a cautious willingness to engage. She recognizes that the Apache's world, though foreign, is not dangerous by nature, and that her own courage, though nascent, has allowed her to navigate circumstances she would once have fled from. Their uneasy trust lays the foundation for the emotional depth and mutual understanding that will be essential as the story progresses, signaling the first real step in a relationship that bridges culture, fear, and the human desire for connection. In this way, the second stage of the story emphasizes the slow, deliberate process of building trust, illustrating how vulnerability, patience, and shared experiences can overcome fear and prejudice, setting the stage for deeper emotional exploration. As the young woman grows more accustomed to the Apache camp, a deeper layer of their interaction begins to emerge, one that moves beyond survival and safety and into the realm of emotional connection. She has spent time observing his world, understanding the rhythms of life in the camp, and realizing that strength and gentleness can coexist. Yet despite this growing awareness, there remains a tension within her, a fear of the unknown, a curiosity about intimacy, and a lingering sense of vulnerability. It is this tension that leads her to voice the question that has been quietly building in her mind. Will it hurt? Will you be gentle? The words are hesitant, almost a whisper, carrying both innocence and a desire for reassurance. In asking, she is not only seeking protection but also probing the boundaries of trust, attempting to understand whether the bond forming between them can encompass care as well as strength. The Apache, hearing her question, is struck by the honesty and courage embedded in it. In a world where words are often measured, calculated, or veiled in caution, her inquiry is raw and unfiltered. He recognizes the significance of her vulnerability and the implicit trust she is placing in him. Rather than reacting with immediate physical guidance, he responds through presence and observation, allowing his silence to communicate that her question is being received seriously. This moment marks a turning point in their relationship. It is no longer only about protection or survival, but about emotional intimacy, consent, and mutual understanding. The Apache is careful not to misinterpret her question. He senses that her query is as much about emotional safety as it is about any potential physical experience. Over the following days, a series of interactions deepens this complex bond. The Apache begins to share fragments of his own past stories of loss, struggle, and the moral code that has guided his actions. These revelations are selective, revealing enough to create empathy and connection without overwhelming the young woman. She listens, sometimes incredulous, sometimes moved, recognizing that the man who protects her is shaped by experiences both painful and honorable. Through these moments, she starts to appreciate that his strength is intertwined with sensitivity and self-discipline, qualities that are not immediately visible in the chaotic world outside the camp. The juxtaposition of vulnerability and resilience in him challenges her preconceptions about masculinity, danger, and care. In turn, the young woman begins to explore her own emotional landscape. Her sheltered upbringing has left her inexperienced with such direct human connection, and she struggles to articulate feelings that are unfamiliar. Moments of hesitation, curiosity, and courage intermingle as she learns to navigate these new emotional territories. The Apache's quiet patience allows her to experiment with trust, to test the boundaries of comfort and fear without judgment. Small gestures, a protective glance, a guiding hand when traversing uneven terrain, an invitation to sit by the fire serve as nonverbal affirmations that trust and safety are possible. Even in a world she once perceived as dangerous, the dynamics between them are further enriched by shared experiences that require cooperation, attentiveness, and mutual reliance. They hunt together, move through the wilderness, and participate in daily routines that, while mundane, reveal character, intention, and moral structure. Each action communicates lessons about patience, empathy, and courage, emphasizing that gentleness is not weakness and strength is not cruelty. The young woman begins to internalize these lessons, recognizing that the question she posed about hurt and gentleness is not merely literal but symbolic of her journey toward understanding, self-confidence, and emotional openness. As their bond develops, it becomes clear that this connection is transformative for both individuals. The young woman gains insight into her own capacity for trust, resilience, and courage, while the Apache discovers the ability to extend tenderness without compromising his principles or strength. Their relationship becomes a delicate dance of boundaries, curiosity, and respect, laying the groundwork for a profound emotional intimacy that transcends cultural divides and personal insecurities. By exploring vulnerability and mutual respect, they both begin a journey of personal growth, signaling the transition from initial protection and curiosity to a deeper, more nuanced understanding of love, trust, and human connection. This stage of the story emphasizes the subtle emotional intricacies of building trust, highlighting how vulnerability, honesty, and careful guidance can bridge differences and foster intimacy, setting the stage for both internal and external challenges that will test their bond. As the young woman's trust in the Apache deepens, the fragile equilibrium they have established is threatened by forces outside the camp. While their bond has grown through shared experiences, patience, and understanding, the world beyond the Apache encampment remains fraught with prejudice, fear, and misunderstanding. Townspeople, fueled by long-standing cultural biases and suspicion, view the Apache as a threat rather than a protector. Rumors and misinformation spread quickly, painting him as dangerous and unpredictable. The young woman, once sheltered and naive, is forced to confront the stark reality that the world beyond the camp can be cruel and unrelenting. She experiences a conflict between loyalty to her family and upbringing, which has instilled caution and conformity, and the growing respect and trust she feels for the Apache. Tension escalates when the townspeople begin to take action. Groups of armed men patrol the outskirts of town, seeking to capture or drive away anyone who challenges their worldview. The Apache, aware of their intentions, prepares both strategically and tactically, relying on his knowledge of the land, his understanding of human behavior, and his instincts honed by experience. He does not act out of vengeance or anger, but out of a protective sense of responsibility for the young woman and for his people. The young woman witnesses the depth of his foresight and skill, recognizing that his strength is coupled with moral integrity. This realization reinforces her growing admiration and trust, even as fear for their safety intensifies. Amidst the looming external threat, the Apache also focuses on teaching the young woman essential survival skills. These lessons are not about physical aggression alone, but encompass situational awareness, careful observation, and self-reliance. He instructs her in subtle defensive techniques, such as navigating the terrain efficiently, recognizing signs of danger, and understanding how to move silently and deliberately. These teachings empower her in a way that she has never experienced, allowing her to feel capable even in the face of fear. The lessons are interwoven with moral guidance. He stresses the importance of discernment and restraint, emphasizing that true strength lies in knowing when to act and when to remain patient. As they prepare for potential confrontation, the young woman begins to display courage in ways that surprise even herself. She becomes more attuned to her surroundings, alert to shifts in the environment, and responsive to the Apache's guidance. Her growth is subtle but meaningful. She learns to trust not only the Apache but also her own instincts. This evolving dynamic challenges the rigid notions she had internalized about dependence, femininity, and vulnerability. She starts to understand that bravery is not the absence of fear, but the conscious choice to act in spite of it. Meanwhile, the Apache faces his own challenges. While he is skilled and experienced, the unpredictability of the townspeople's actions forces him to remain vigilant and flexible. His protective instincts are heightened, but he is careful not to overstep, recognizing the young woman's right to make choices for herself. Their partnership becomes a delicate balance of guidance, trust, and mutual reliance, where both characters contribute to their collective safety and emotional resilience. Growing tension reaches a climax when an initial encounter with the townspeople occurs. Scouts or aggressors test the perimeter, creating a moment of immediate danger that requires coordinated response. The young woman, though frightened, draws on the lessons she has learned from the Apache, contributing in small but significant ways to their defense. These moments demonstrate the transformation of her character, from sheltered and dependent to alert, capable, and courageous. The Apache's respect for her deepens further, as he recognizes that trust and competence are reciprocated rather than one-sided. This stage of the story emphasizes the interplay between internal growth and external conflict. The young woman's emerging courage and the Apache's strategic leadership illustrate how trust, respect, and preparedness can counteract fear and prejudice. The looming threat from the town serves not only as an external obstacle, but also as a catalyst for the development of their relationship, testing emotional bonds, moral principles, and practical skills. Through shared vigilance, instruction, and resilience, they begin to forge a connection that is grounded in mutual respect and reinforced by adversity, preparing them for the deeper challenges and transformations that lie ahead. In this way, the narrative underscores the tension between societal expectations and personal loyalty, illustrating how courage, trust, and emotional growth emerge most vividly in the face of real danger. As the immediate threat from the town begins to recede, the young woman and the Apache find themselves in a rare moment of calm within the camp. It is in these quiet, unhurried intervals that the story shifts from physical survival to the subtler, more profound dimensions of emotional intimacy. The young woman has grown more comfortable within the Apache's world, her initial fear gradually giving way to curiosity, admiration, and a tentative trust that now extends beyond mere safety. She begins to sense that the Apache's strength is not merely physical, but deeply intertwined with restraint, honor, and an understanding of human vulnerability. These qualities inspire both awe and a sense of connection, leading her to reflect on her own emotions and desires in ways she has never done before. The young woman's question, "Will it hurt? Will you be gentle?" echoes in her mind as she wrestles with the complexity of intimacy, not only in a physical sense but also in terms of trust, emotional exposure, and personal courage. Her upbringing, strict and sheltered, has left her inexperienced in matters of emotional closeness. She is learning that vulnerability requires more than compliance. It demands discernment, the courage to articulate fears and desires, and the willingness to engage with another person on a profoundly human level. The Apache, acutely aware of her internal struggle, responds not with words alone but through actions that convey patience, attentiveness, and respect. Simple gestures, a guiding hand, a protective glance, an offer of comfort demonstrate that gentleness and strength can coexist, and that true protection involves honoring the other's autonomy. Over time, their interactions evolve into a delicate dance of mutual understanding. The Apache begins to reveal aspects of his inner life that are usually hidden behind a veneer of stoicism and vigilance. He shares stories of his childhood, the trials he has faced, and the moral principles that guide his actions. These disclosures are measured and intentional, providing insight without overwhelming the young woman. They allow her to see that his formidable exterior conceals a nuanced emotional landscape shaped by experiences of loss, responsibility, and survival. In turn, she begins to articulate her own thoughts, feelings, and curiosities, testing the boundaries of trust with honesty and subtlety. These exchanges foster a rare emotional intimacy, one built not on immediate physicality but on shared vulnerability and attentive listening. As their relationship deepens, the young woman begins to understand that courage is not defined solely by physical action, but also by emotional honesty. She learns to articulate her fears, to ask questions that reveal her inner uncertainty, and to engage with the Apache as an equal in their growing connection. This process transforms her perception of herself. She begins to recognize her capacity for bravery, insight, and resilience, qualities that had been dormant under years of sheltering and caution. The Apache, for his part, responds with a gentle guidance that honors her pace, demonstrating that emotional connection cannot be forced but must emerge organically from trust, respect, and patience. Moments of shared reflection and quiet intimacy punctuate their days. They sit by the fire, observing the night sky, discussing dreams and fears, and revealing small but significant aspects of their inner lives. These moments reinforce the idea that intimacy is as much about understanding and empathy as it is about physical closeness. The young woman observes the Apache's attentiveness, his willingness to listen, and his ability to provide security without imposing dominance. She begins to grasp that gentleness is a form of strength and that true courage includes protecting both oneself and those who trust you. By this stage, the bond between them has become transformative for both characters. The young woman gains confidence, self-awareness, and emotional resilience, while the Apache discovers the capacity to extend tenderness and vulnerability without compromising his integrity or principles. Their relationship is a careful balance of respect, curiosity, and emotional exploration, setting the stage for the challenges and choices that will test their trust and commitment in the future. This phase emphasizes the intricate interplay of vulnerability, patience, and understanding, illustrating how emotional intimacy can flourish alongside courage and strength, even in the midst of a dangerous and unpredictable world. The narrative in this stage highlights the evolving nature of trust and love, portraying it as a gradual, deliberate, and mutual process. It underscores the theme that true gentleness requires both moral courage and empathetic understanding, preparing both characters for the trials that will inevitably follow. The fragile sense of security that the young woman and the Apache have cultivated is shattered when the external threat from the townspeople escalates into a full-blown crisis. While the preceding days allowed them to build trust, explore emotional intimacy, and develop a mutual understanding of one another, the looming danger now tests everything they have learned and forces both characters into immediate action. The town's prejudice and fear, previously simmering under the surface, erupt into violent aggression, compelling the Apache to defend not only the young woman but also his own people and way of life. This crisis marks a pivotal moment in the story, blending high-stakes physical conflict with deep emotional and moral challenges, as each character confronts both their fears and their capacity for courage. The attack begins suddenly, with armed men advancing toward the encampment under the cover of confusion and intimidation. The Apache, anticipating such an event, acts swiftly, rallying members of his community to secure the perimeter and protect the vulnerable. He moves with precise efficiency, demonstrating both his tactical skill and his calmness under pressure. Every decision he makes is measured, aimed at minimizing harm while countering the aggressor's hostility. His knowledge of the terrain, coupled with his experience in navigating threats, gives him a strategic advantage, but the stakes remain perilously high. The young woman witnesses his decisive action and is struck not only by his physical prowess but by the moral clarity guiding him. He fights to protect life, not to seek revenge, illustrating the depth of his integrity. In the chaos of the attack, the young woman experiences a transformation of her own. Although fear grips her, she draws upon the lessons the Apache has taught her: awareness of surroundings, silent movement, and cautious decision-making. She begins to navigate the danger with increasing confidence, contributing in small but meaningful ways to their defense. Her actions, whether signaling potential threats or aiding others in the camp, reveal a bravery that surprises even herself. This marks a turning point in her personal growth. She is no longer a passive observer, but an active participant in the struggle for safety and survival. Her courage, emerging in response to the crisis, strengthens the bond between her and the Apache, demonstrating that trust is reciprocal and that protection is most effective when paired with competence and awareness. Amidst the physical danger, the emotional stakes intensify. The young woman is forced to confront the reality of mortality, uncertainty, and the fragility of life. Simultaneously, the Apache faces the challenge of protecting someone he has grown to care for deeply without overstepping boundaries or compromising her autonomy. Their connection, previously built through patience, shared reflection, and subtle gestures, now becomes a source of strength. The crisis accelerates their emotional intimacy, revealing the depth of mutual reliance and the unspoken understanding that has developed between them. In the face of external threat, their partnership is tested in its most concrete form. They must act as a cohesive unit, balancing instinct, skill, and trust. The battle itself is chaotic, punctuated by moments of tension and fear, yet it also provides instances of remarkable human courage. Both characters display adaptability, quick thinking, and resilience under pressure. The young woman's emerging strength and the Apache's disciplined leadership create a dynamic interplay that underscores the story's central themes: courage, trust, and the balance between gentleness and strength. The encounter forces both to confront their limitations and to stretch beyond them, revealing qualities of bravery, resourcefulness, and moral clarity that had previously been latent. After the immediate threat is neutralized, both characters are physically and emotionally drained, yet profoundly transformed. The young woman recognizes her own resilience and ability to act decisively in moments of danger, while the Apache gains deeper insight into her courage and the strength that lies beneath her initial vulnerability. The crisis solidifies their bond, highlighting the importance of mutual trust and emotional fortitude in the face of adversity. It also serves as a prelude to the continuing challenges that will test not only their survival skills but also the depth of their emotional connection. This stage emphasizes the intertwined nature of external and internal conflict. Physical danger catalyzes personal growth, revealing latent strengths and deepening emotional bonds. The narrative demonstrates that true courage encompasses both action and vulnerability, that trust must be earned and reciprocated, and that intimacy is most profoundly forged in the crucible of shared trials and adversity. After surviving the intense and life-threatening attack on the Apache camp, both the young woman and the Apache find themselves in a period of reflection and emotional recalibration. The crisis has left them physically fatigued and mentally strained, yet it has also forged a bond of trust and respect that neither could have anticipated. In the aftermath, they are forced to confront not only the immediate consequences of the attack, but also the profound transformations that have occurred within themselves and each other. This stage of the story emphasizes introspection, emotional growth, and the subtle deepening of their relationship, moving from survival-driven reliance to authentic understanding and connection. Young woman experiences a profound sense of self-discovery. The events of the previous days, particularly her active participation in defending the camp, have shattered the limitations imposed by her sheltered upbringing. She realizes that courage is not the absence of fear, but the ability to act in spite of it. Her previous notions of fragility, dependence, and innocence are redefined through lived experience. She has discovered strength, quick thinking, and an intuitive understanding of the Apache's teachings. Each of her actions during the crisis, however small, has reinforced her confidence and reshaped her identity. She begins to recognize that her vulnerability, once a source of anxiety, is also a pathway to connection, empathy, and moral insight. At the same time, the Apache undergoes his own subtle transformation. He has always embodied strength, discipline, and a deep moral code, yet the young woman's presence has revealed dimensions of tenderness and emotional openness that he had previously kept guarded. Observing her courage, her willingness to learn, and her vulnerability, he is reminded of the profound impact of human connection. The attack on the camp underscored his protective instincts, but the aftermath allows him to see that trust can be mutual. She is not merely someone to shield, but an individual capable of understanding, resilience, and contribution. This realization encourages him to soften certain boundaries, opening his heart in a way that respects both his identity and the young woman's autonomy. Their interactions during this period are marked by quiet reflection and dialogue that explores their experiences, fears, and aspirations. Around the campfire, they exchange stories of their respective childhoods, losses, and moments of formative significance. The young woman speaks of the constraints of her upbringing and her yearning for independence, while the Apache shares memories of survival, honor, and cultural tradition. These exchanges are measured, authentic, and reciprocal, reinforcing the themes of mutual respect and understanding. They are not simply talking, they are actively building a framework of empathy that allows them to see and appreciate each other's inner worlds. Young woman's perception of gentleness and strength is evolving. She begins to understand that gentleness is not passive submission, but an active choice that requires moral courage. Likewise, she recognizes that true strength is tempered by empathy and ethical restraint. Observing the Apache's actions and internal reflections, she gains insight into how he balances power with care, authority with respect, and independence with responsibility. These lessons resonate deeply, influencing how she approaches both her interactions with him and her understanding of her own emerging identity. Meanwhile, the Apache notices the young woman's growth and resilience, and his respect for her deepens. Her ability to act decisively in the face of danger, coupled with her willingness to learn and trust, reveals a character that is both brave and perceptive. He begins to see her not simply as someone in need of protection, but as a partner, someone whose presence enriches his life and challenges him to grow emotionally. This realization marks a pivotal shift. Their relationship evolves from one defined by dependence and guidance to one characterized by mutual admiration, emotional intimacy, and shared values. By the end of this stage, both characters are transformed. The young woman has gained confidence, self-awareness, and a nuanced understanding of courage and gentleness. The Apache has embraced the possibility of emotional openness without compromising his principles or sense of self. Their bond is now deeply rooted in shared experience, mutual respect, and emotional insight, preparing them to face the ultimate tests and unforeseen challenges that lie ahead. This stage underscores the theme that true transformation emerges not only from external challenges but also from the conscious reflection, emotional honesty, and mutual recognition of each other's humanity. In this phase, the narrative emphasizes that personal growth and relational depth are inseparable from shared trials, revealing how trust, courage, and emotional vulnerability coalesce to form profound connections that endure beyond immediate danger. After enduring danger, fear, and profound emotional growth together, the young woman and the Apache face the final stage of their journey, a period that tests the depth of their bond and solidifies the transformations they have undergone. By this point, their relationship has evolved far beyond initial curiosity, trust building, and survival. They are no longer merely protector and protected, but partners who share mutual respect, understanding, and emotional intimacy. The external threats of the town may have subsided, but new challenges, both practical and moral, emerge, forcing them to navigate uncertainty together. This concluding part of the story explores the culmination of character growth, the triumph of courage and gentleness, and an ending that defies expectation while remaining emotionally satisfying. Narrative opens with the two leaving the encampment, traveling through the wilderness toward safety and freedom. The young woman moves with confidence, her steps measured and alert, reflecting the skills, awareness, and courage she has acquired. She no longer relies solely on the Apache for protection but acts in concert with him, their movements coordinated, their trust reciprocal. This evolution highlights the transformation of her character. She has become active in shaping her own destiny, embracing autonomy while acknowledging the strength of partnership. The Apache, likewise, remains vigilant and skilled, but his attention is increasingly shaped by consideration, empathy, and the emotional bond they share rather than solely by instinctual survival. As they journey, unforeseen challenges test their ingenuity, courage, and mutual reliance. Perhaps they encounter natural obstacles, a treacherous river, a sudden storm, or dangerous terrain that require careful collaboration. These trials reinforce the lessons they have learned. Courage is grounded in preparation, patience, and ethical judgment. Strength is most effective when tempered by restraint and awareness. And trust is validated through shared experience and mutual respect. Each obstacle becomes a canvas upon which they demonstrate not only physical skill but also emotional intelligence, reinforcing the growth they have achieved throughout the story. Alongside these practical challenges, the narrative addresses the societal implications of their union. Their relationship defies cultural expectations, societal norms, and deeply ingrained prejudices, which adds a moral and emotional dimension to their journey. They navigate the world as a pair who are both admired and questioned, demonstrating that courage, love, and integrity can transcend conventional limitations. Their bond becomes a symbol of the potential for understanding and cooperation across cultures, illustrating that true connection requires openness, empathy, and the willingness to challenge one's assumptions. In intimate moments along the journey, the young woman and the Apache reflect on their shared experiences, the lessons learned, and the personal transformations they have undergone. They acknowledge the fears, vulnerabilities, and uncertainties they confronted, celebrating the resilience, insight, and courage that allowed them to overcome each challenge. These reflections deepen their emotional intimacy and affirm the authenticity of their connection. They recognize that the journey has changed them individually and collectively, preparing them for a future that is both unknown and promising. The climax of this final stage is both dramatic and emotionally resonant. Perhaps a final, unforeseen danger, whether a moral dilemma, a natural threat, or a residual threat from the town, forces them to act decisively, combining their physical skills, intelligence, and emotional synergy. Their response exemplifies the culmination of their growth. The young woman demonstrates bravery and initiative, while the Apache balances strength with gentleness and moral clarity. Together, they navigate the challenge successfully, reinforcing the story's central themes of courage, trust, and emotional depth. The story concludes with a resolution that is both surprising and satisfying. The young woman has achieved self-knowledge, autonomy, and emotional resilience, while the Apache has embraced vulnerability, tenderness, and the rewards of mutual trust. Their relationship, forged in adversity and tempered by understanding, stands as a testament to the transformative power of courage, gentleness, and authentic human connection. The ending defies conventional expectations, not through sensationalism, but through the profound, lasting changes within the characters themselves. Growth, trust, and mutual respect are not merely abstract ideals, but forces capable of overcoming danger, prejudice, and fear, leaving readers with a lasting sense of awe, hope, and emotional satisfaction.